cannot watch.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Hey. How's everybody doing?
Very good.
All right. Well, let's sing out Victory in Jesus. I heard an old story, how a Savior came from glory, how he gave his life on Calvary to save a wretch like me. I heard about his groaning, of his precious blood's atonement. I repented of my sins and won the victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. He loved me ere I knew him, and all my love is due him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. I heard about his healing, of his cleansing power revealing, how he made the lame to walk again, and caused the blind to see. And then I cried, dear Jesus, come and heal my broken spirit. And somehow Jesus came and brought to me the victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. He loved me ere I knew him, and all my love is due him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. I heard about a mansion he has built for me in glory. I heard about the streets of gold beyond the crystal sea, about the angels singing and your redemption story. Some sweet day I'll sing of there the song of victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. He loved me ere I knew him, and all my love is due him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing blood. Awesome. Thank you. Good song. Yolanda, share your story again about this song so everybody can hear it.
Oh, when I was in college, I went to a Bible college, and when I was there after tests, after exams, if you did well, you went out singing this song. If you weren't singing, we know how you did.
If they weren't singing, it was a tough test. They didn't do too well. All right. So I picked a question that has to do with victory. And this is a question that it's on this day in history, but it lasted to tomorrow. And you understand what I'm talking about. Raise your hands if you know the answer, or you can take a guess. The longest baseball game in Fenway Park history. How many innings? Mike.
27.
No.
Was that a guess?
Debbie.
18.
No.
Good guess.
Laura.
24.
No. Mike. David.
18.
Nope.
Somebody said 18.
Carol.
16.
Nope. Y'all are close. Linda.
28.
No. Rudy.
23.
Nope. Angelique.
21.
Nope. Russell.
14.
Nope. Betty.
17.
Nope. Donna?
13.
Huh?
13.
No, Brenda?
20.
20! So, this is the story behind it. They did 19 innings on September 3rd, and they called a curfew rule. They had to stop playing. They came back the next morning and played one inning, and the Seattle Mariners beat the Boston Red Sox 8-7.
All right.
Where their lights.
19 innings in one day, and then came back the next morning and finished. I have to look it up. I think it's 70 something. Yeah. Yeah. All right, Donna. Donna called me. She said, I'm not going to be there. And she said, I'm going to be there. I said, okay, make up your mind.
Yeah, my son was coming over to paint my ceiling, and he said he was coming this morning, so I called Steve and said, I don't think I'm gonna make it. Then he called me this morning to tell me he's not coming until this afternoon, so I called Steve back and told him I wasn't. So I said, plans have changed, sorry for the confusion. But anyway, I've told this joke before, but it's a little long. It's really for the men, not for the ladies. But it starts off like it's for the ladies. Hey ladies, do you know there is an opening up a new store in New York City? It's called the Husband Store. You can go there and shop for a husband. There are 6 floors in the store. You can only visit each floor one time and each floor you go up, its values increases. You may choose any item from any particular floor, but you cannot go down a floor. You can only go up a floor. So there was a woman who went to the husband store to find herself a husband. On the first floor, the sign on the door reads, "These men have jobs." She said, that sounds pretty good. These men have jobs. Second floor, these men have jobs and loves kids. Oh, she said, that's even better. She goes on to the third floor. These men have jobs, loves kids, and are extremely good looking. She said, wow, I'm really getting excited here. So it all sounds good, but was compelled to go to the next floor. Well, she does go to the 4th floor, and the sign reads, these men have jobs, love kids, and are drop-dead good looking, and they help with housework. Oh, mercy me, she says. I can hardly stand it. Still, she said, I've got to go on. She went to the 5th floor. The sign reads, these men have jobs, loves kids, drop dead gorgeous, help with housework, and have a very strong romantic streak. But she couldn't stand it. She decided she decided she had to just find what was on the 6th floor. The 6th floor, your visitor 31,456 to this floor. There are no men on this floor. This floor exists solely as proof that women are impossible to please. I told that before. A little boy writes a letter to God. A little boy wants $100 very badly and prays for a week, but nothing happens. Then he decided to write God a letter requesting the $100. When the postal authorities received the letter addressed to God, USA, they decided to send it to the president. The president was so amused that he instructed the secretary to send the little boy $5. The president figured this would appear to be a lot of money for a little boy. The little boy was delighted with the $5 bill and sat down and wrote a thank you note to God, which read, Dear God, thank you very much for sending money. However, I noticed that for some reason you sent it through Washington, D.C. Do you know that those bureaucrats deducted $95 in taxes? Okay, comes a time in life when you walk away from all the drama and the people that create it. You surround yourself with people who make you laugh. Forget the bad and focus on the good. Love the people who treat you right. Pray for the ones that don't. Life is too short to be anything but happy.
The year of the baseball game was 1981.
Oh,
So they had lights.
How many fans came back the next morning?
Yeah,
Y'all ask too many questions.
that would have been a good trip. How many of the fans? Probably none. No, they're probably with
good morning. It's always hurtful when someone talks about the Red Sox losing. I grew up in New Hampshire, and there aren't any teams in New Hampshire, so you have to pick one that's close by. And when you're in New Hampshire, you don't pick anything from New York. That's not how that works. So you just have the Boston Red Sox, and it was from 1928 until all the way to 2005. They finally won in 2005, and I watched it on TV, and I was so elated. And they've won since, and it's not such a big deal anymore. So it's like, well. But you talk about them losing in that horrible streak, and I just cringe. Good morning. So this morning, as I was telling Joe, we're going to be diving into a word, just a single word today. We're going to be doing our lesson, but in our lesson, there's a word here that I don't think we really get. I'm not going into it. Not going to dive into the Greek or the Hebrew or anything. I'm just going to kind of just draw out this word and its extensions. And some of you may catch the word once we go over it, but there's a whole parable dedicated to this word. Not here, but I believe it's in Luke where it just explains this word. So be thinking about what word this could be as we go into this bit here, because a lot of the other parts of it we've understood, we've talked about, but this word, I've never really heard anybody kind of really bang this word to pieces, and I'm going to do that like I usually do it. So,
And we appreciate that.
oh, you're welcome. It just kind of was an inspiration thing of well, just see how this goes. So, can I get someone to read? We're in Matthew 22. Can I get someone to go from 34 down through 40, please?
Hearing
Go ahead.
that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question: Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments.
So, does anybody know what word out of there we're going to talk about? It's one that we don't really discuss. There's a whole parable dedicated to just this one word. What's that?
Integrity?
Nope.
Love.
Nope.
Commandment.
So I'll give it to you. We'll
Commandment?
get there. So, the first thing I want to talk about is when we talk about loving the Lord your God. Does anyone know where that comes from? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind.
The Old Testament somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, yes, the Old Testament somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You got it. Case closed. Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy what? Do you know?
6:5.
That's cheating. Yes, Deuteronomy 6:5. That's actually, does anyone know what that's called? That area in Deuteronomy 6 there. That's described as a whole thing. It's a prayer that's done almost every night in Orthodox Jewish households. Does anyone know what that's called? I've kind of referenced that before. It begins with S-H.
Shama. Shema.
Close. The Shema. Shema. That's where they kind of go through this about talking about all the things that you're going to do with the commandments, kind of going about who God is and what He does and relates to your life. So it's really interesting that when you look at how God relates to you and relates to your life, that's the first and greatest commandment that Jesus says, and yet this commandment to love the Lord your God is not found where? Where is this commandment not actually
Ten
found?
Commandments.
It's not in the Ten Commandments. It's part of that Deuteronomical code there when he says, here's what you're going to start with. You're going to tell these people this is what I command you. And you're commanded to do this thing. So before you even get to the Ten Commandments, you have to understand to even think about how to obey the Ten Commandments, you have to live this way by loving the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. You can't follow the Ten Commandments without doing that thing first. Now in the Ten Commandments, and you can look them up there in Exodus 20, if you want to, you don't have to. There are 10 commandments. Some of them relate to God. One of them's kind of a connecting one, and then the rest relate to man. How many relate specifically to God?
4.
How many relate specifically to God only and not with other people?
Is it 4?
It's 3, and then there's the one extra about the Sabbath. So the Sabbath is more like relating to other people, but there's 3 specifically related to God.
Yeah, first, second, and third.
First, second, and third commandments. Now those commandments don't say love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul. However, you can't perform those first 3 commandments, or even the Sabbath commandment, number 4, without first understanding that you have to love God preeminently. It has to come first. If you're not loving God, as it says there in Deuteronomy, you can't fulfill even 3 of the commandments. And as Jesus says later on, all the law, that's all the law, that means the commandments and everything forward, and the prophets hang on these commands. Okay, the first one being, you have to love God. Now, how many commandments relate specifically, not the Sabbath one, that one's like interchangeable here, but specifically, not to your mother and father, but to other people? 5. The vast majority of commands, half of them, have to do with your relationship to people who aren't you or necessarily in your family, but people who are outside of your family. Half of those commands. Now again, we're getting to that word. In the second greatest command, as Jesus says, and a second one is like it, you shall love who?
Your neighbor.
Your neighbor. Now what's interesting is he doesn't say your family. He doesn't say your closest brother. He uses a word that to us means a very specific thing. It means a very specific thing that we can translate into like an area. So if I were to take the word neighbor, and I said, who is my neighbor? Well, I would say 703. She's right next door to me. 701 is right next door to 703. And the person that is actually right at my door, I exit my door and then I step this way and this is her door. She is 707. I would call her my direct neighbor, not someone I might pass their doors, but my direct neighbor. Our walls connect. She can hear me yapping at the dog in my funny voices and talking to my wife in funnier ways. She probably hears all of these things in my ranting and ravings and singings. But that's okay. She doesn't complain. But that would be what I would call my neighbor. Now, when we get into this word neighbor, we technically are incorrect when we look at it from the standpoint of what God is trying to say here. Okay? So, in digging into that word, I really like how it says there in Exodus, and this is Exodus 13, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife or his male servant, female servant, or his ox or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. That's the last 5 commandments. They specifically refer to your neighbor or someone that isn't within your general vicinity of your family. Someone who may not be you. And that includes just random people that you might encounter. Now, how do we know that it's just people that we don't encounter? In the Hebrew there, the word neighbor can also be translated to another. Or more specifically, the word neighbor is translated to a word that I find communicates the way that I interact with most people, and not necessarily friends. I think friendship is something very close. but the word acquaintance. So the word neighbor is merely someone that you may interact with on a low level. Not necessarily a deep level, but someone you interact with at a low level. Can anyone think of a parable that specifically relates to talking about neighbors? The Good Samaritan. Now in the Good Samaritan, I'll kind of surmise it. You have a fellow that's walking along the road. This is a Jewish individual. He lives probably around Jerusalem or in Judea, that area. He's walking along the road and some bandits kind of assuage him, and they come up and they take him apart and they beat him up. They rob him, they take everything he has, they leave him for dead. And walking down this same road comes a priest. All right? Priest, part of the temple. He's walking, probably not on the Sabbath, so it's not a high day. So he comes down, he sees this fellow, and where does he go?
The other side of the road.
Other side of the road. Doesn't do anything for him, he just walks on the other side of the road. A Jew, just like he is. Then there comes another fellow. I like to think that they come from opposite directions. And the Levite and the priest sort of say, hey, how you doing? And the priest sort of says, hey, wait a minute, you got to be careful up there. So the Levite gets up, and what does he do? Walks right by. Doesn't care anything about this fellow that's laying in the road. Now, the next person that comes by is a what?
Samaritan.
How did the Jews feel about Samaritans?
They hated them.
They hated them. They half-breeds. Where did they worship?
Anywhere but the temple.
They didn't worship at the temple. In fact, they worshipped on a high mountain. What have been called in the Old Testament? They would have called it a high place. These are the altars you're not supposed to have. You're only supposed to have the one that exists there in Jerusalem. That's the only altar you're supposed to offer sacrifices on or to worship God in that specific way there. And yet here they were, I believe it's Mount Gilboa. I have been known to be wrong. But that's where they would go and they would make their sacrifices and have their worship. We remember the woman at the well where Jesus says, well, there comes a time that even though you worship here and the Jews worship here, that you're going to worship in spirit and truth. Okay, you're not going to worry about that. So this Samaritan who worships in a whole different place, goes to a whole different place than the Jews. They're hated by the Jews. They couldn't be stood by them. He walks along the road, and what does he do? Stops and does what?
Helps him.
Helps him. What else does he do for him? Takes him to where he can be helped. Pays him, and then what else does he do? Not just pay him for that, but he
For extra time.
for anything else in the future. And he says, here's the monies that if he requires anything else, take care of it, and I'm going to come back. And if there was more that was required, I'll take care of it. I'm gonna pony up the dough, make sure he's really well. Okay. Then Jesus asked this question that again I really don't think we understand the connection of. He says, who proved to be this man's neighbor? What do they say? Well, they don't say the
The
Samaritan.
one that helps him.
They said the one that showed mercy on him. Yeah, the one that helps him. They can't even say the word Samaritan. Okay? That is asked after this question. Like I said, I believe it's in Luke, where they say, well, who is my friends or who is my neighbor? And Jesus gives this response. It's very interesting because all those two individuals, the two Jews, all of the Jews that pass by him, they cross to the other side, they leave him be, they don't do anything. And yet here you would say that they're his neighbor. And they do nothing for this fellow. And yet the one who you would say has nothing to do with him, wouldn't be a neighbor whatsoever, is the very one who actually helps him. Who proved to be the neighbor? The one that normally would have nothing to do with him, and he have nothing to do with. Now, in using that example, I want to go back to what God says in the Old Testament there about where, and this is where the love your neighbor comes from. When it talks about who neighbors are and what you are to do for them. We've seen what you're not supposed to do to them, but now we want to talk about what would you do for your neighbor. And that's in Leviticus 19. Joe, can I get you to go there for me?
All right.
Leviticus 19,
Yeah.
verse 9. And these are all commands. Every single one of these is going to be another command. Okay? Let me know when you got that.
Verse 9? I got it.
Starting at verse 9, can you go from 19:9 through 18?
Okay. When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edge of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Do not go over the vineyard a second time, or pick up the grapes that have fallen. Leave them for the poor and the alien. I am the Lord your God. Do not steal, do not lie, do not deceive one another, do not swear falsely by my name, and so profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. Do not defraud your neighbor or rob him. Do not hold back the wages of a hired man overnight. Do not curse the thief or put stumbling block in front of the blind, but fear the Lord, fear your God. I am the Lord. And do not pervert justice. Do not show partiality. Do the poor or to the partiality to the poor, or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly. Do not go about spreading slander among your people. Do not do anything that endangers your neighbor's life. I am the Lord. Do not have your brother in your heart, or hate your brother in your heart. Rebuke your neighbor frankly, so you will not share in his guilt. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against one of your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord.
It's really interesting here that there's a whole section there of commands of how to relate to your neighbor. And it's interesting because it says, don't even go around and slander among your people, and you shall not stand up against the life of your neighbor. This isn't just relating to an individual that lives close to you. This goes so much more past that. If you took that word neighbor and then substituted it for, and this again, some of those words can be translated in different ways, but if you put the word acquaintance there, doesn't that heavy, it makes that phrase so heavy, love your neighbor as yourself. It gives it so much more weight, okay? When I look at the Good Samaritan, and I think of people that we, as Christians, and to a lesser extent as Americans, we can sometimes be the Jew. We can sometimes walk on the other side when there's someone there that we don't associate with. And that could be both anyone that's not part of our culture. It could be someone that's not part of our racial group. It could be someone who's not part of our faith. It could be someone who doesn't have any faith. That we sort of walk on the other side of the road. Can anyone give me, and you can have, there's lots of them, but can anyone give me some examples of individuals that if we're the Jew, if we're the one that's beaten and laying on the side of the road, who would be a Samaritan to us that would come and assist us? Who would that be? I'm a Christian. Who can think of someone that Christians usually can't stand that might come and assist me as a Christian and take care of me?
A Muslim.
A Muslim. Someone who belongs to Islam. Well, that's shocking, right? It's shocking to think, wait a minute, the person who proves to be my neighbor doesn't even share my faith. Usually, I can't stand them, and they definitely can't stand me, and yet they come and they help me. That's what we're talking about here when we talk about neighbors. We can say someone that's totally different culture. I have a problem with people wearing pants around their knees. That's me. I don't particularly do that. They might come in with a bunch of tattoos. I don't have a problem with tattoos so much. But tattoos and gold chains and like those rappers, they got all that stuff on. They come up and all of a sudden they say, oh my gosh, this guy's hurt. I need to take care of him. That would blow your mind sometimes, right? If a guy in a nice three-piece suit, and he's a preacher, he's like, oh, there's Russell. I definitely don't want to help that guy. And he just keeps walking on. A nice church lady, she clutches her purse. He's bleeding, and she goes over this way. And yet this guy, in all his swag and his drip, there's some hip words for you. He walks up and he comes up and he says, man, I got to help him. And he doesn't just take me to the hospital. He then pays my bill for the hospital stay. Blows your mind sometimes.
Wouldn't another example would be like a lot of people sitting on the roadside begging for money? Would that fall into that category where you actually give them money? Would that be the same situation?
It can, but here we're talking about a very desperate situation. Okay. Sometimes those are. But when we talk about who is merciful to them, that could be used as a great touchstone,
Yeah.
a great reference point, because we're talking about people who don't necessarily know the person. That guy in the chains definitely doesn't know me, and I most certainly don't know him. The Muslim doesn't know me, and I certainly don't know him. And yet, as Jesus says, they prove to be my neighbor because they show mercy on me. When we talk about neighborhood, neighborship, we're not just talking about close relation and proximity. We're talking about people who are just acquaintance to us in whatever fashion. Someone in the church has a need. We might say, well, I'm not part of their family. And yet, if you want to fulfill that love your neighbor as yourself, to fulfill that, you find out, what is their need? What can I do? This church is actually really good at that. Of saying, who has a need in this church? Well, all I can do is pray. Then I can pray. Now, if they need visitation, there are lots of people in here, and I know Jim especially. Visit people and say, I may not know them very well personally, but this person needs visitation. And a lot of you make phone calls. This person needs a phone call. I'm going to call that person. That shows that you are their neighbor, and you are fulfilling that second command, as Jesus says. You fulfill that by showing that person that you love them, just as you love yourself. You would like a phone call, you call them. You would like to be taken care of with your electric bill and other bills, you do the same for them as much as you can. You would like to be visited when you're sick, and yet you go and you visit them when they're sick. It's very important to not just make the assumption that when we see a word, that it references something very, very, very small and minute and very specific. It doesn't say, love the Lord your God with your talents, and yet it says with all your mind. Well, my talents have to do with my mind. Therefore, when I love God, I love Him with my mind. If I can use that to then love other people, well, I would want someone to love me with their mind in whatever capacity. I enjoy learning new things. I enjoy a good joke. I enjoy these things that come from someone's mind. And so because of that, wouldn't I want to also share that thing? And therefore, in so loving God, I now am also fulfilling that second command by loving other people, and there fill the first command, loving God, because I fill the second one. All works together, those two commands. And yet you don't find those two commands explicitly stated in the Ten Commandments. And yet Jesus says, on these two commandments hang what?
All the law.
All of the law and the prophets. Everything the prophets said, everything that the law commands, everything the law commands you not to do, all of it hangs on loving God fully and loving a neighbor as yourself. Like I said this morning, when I got to that word neighbor, I said, don't we sometimes kind of just grind that word up a little bit? We make it easy. We say, oh, I had a bake sale. I've got a leftover pie. I'll take it to my next door neighbor. You know, I actually think of this. We bought this cart. Whenever we do groceries or the trash, there's this cart that I have that we put everything in, and then we either take it to the trash or we, like I do recycling, so I fill this cart full of all my recycling, get my recycling box. And it's a pretty good sized cart, holds like 200 pounds or something. I'm not getting in it. But I towed this thing around. We put the groceries in it. It's really, really handy, and I like this cart. Well, we went to get one that was bigger, so my wife found one that holds up to 300 something pounds. I'm still not getting in that one. But it was supposed to be this big cart, right? I, in my hubris, did not look at the dimensions of the cart. So, we get this cart, it's in a big old box like this, and I said, man, this cart's going to be great. I cut that box open, and the cart is this big, and folds out to about that big. And I said, well, that cart can fit 2 times over in my big one. I said, I don't want this. Well, it was out one day, because I just gotten that small cart, so it's like sitting in my living room there. And I take my big cart and I'm taking my recycling out, and my neighbor, my literal next door neighbor right there, she says, oh, that's a neat cart. He said, you use that all the time? I said, yeah, you've seen me take this truck and about. And it's so funny that she says this. She goes, that's a really neat cart. I'd like to have one of those. I said, you know, it's funny that you say that. Because I have a cart that I don't think we're going to be using. She's like, well, how much does that cost? I was like, I don't know, $30. So she says, okay, I'll get that to you. Give me the card. And I was like, okay, cool, you know. $30, whatever, ain't no thing. I get back, and that night I said, I'll have to talk to my wife. So I talked with Steve. She says, Russell, don't charge her $30. Just give it to her. Oh, okay. So I went over the next day and I said, she said, oh, I'm sorry, I found one for 10. I said, tell you what, I can do better than that. I'll give it to you for free. And it's something so simple, something so small, but she mentioned to me a thing that then I could supply to her. In fact, if that cart was going to be bigger than mine, I was going to give her my old one, which I showed her there's only one little bed part of it. She didn't care. But I was giving her that cart that I've loved for a couple of years because she said that she just liked it. And that's it. That's all it took. And I've interacted with her before when I've had this cart, and she's never mentioned that until all of a sudden I try to give myself a nice big grandiose cart, and it turns out not to work. So I give her the one that we bought for nothing. It's something so small sometimes that can be something that's done that's so great. It just shows that love just a little bit. Because if I saw her with a cart and I said, boy, where did you get that? She said, tell you what, I got a cart, you can have her $30. Well, I'd go get it for her for $30. But if she said, here, have it for free, boy, I'd be elated that I got a cart. Instead of hauling all that sand stuff from the car all the way to the house. Because boy, that stuff weighs a lot when you get enough trips. 40 pounds of dog food, 20-something pounds of cat food, both shoulders. Yeah. I'd rather not do that. You throw it in the cart, it makes it that much easier. But that's what we're talking about. Sometimes it's something so simple. Sometimes it's something that is not as egregious as someone laying, bleeding, robbed on the side of the road. It's just a cold cup of water given in my name. That's all Jesus says. A cup of cold water. And to love people, like I would like a cup of cold water right now. And it's funny, when I've seen, when I was a kid, there was a preacher we had, and he would get up there, and he'd cough once, and one of the deacons would like run in the back and get some water and bring it up, and he'd be really thankful. And he never drank from it but that one time, but they still got him something. It's something so small. A kindness, a love, and that starts to show who Jesus is. And it starts to show your obedience to that second command, and therefore in obeying the second command, you also obey the first. I don't want you to walk away from this of thinking, oh, I have to go and sell everything that I have and then give it all away. That's not what Christ wants you to do. He wants you to start by understanding that people would like to live just as you do. They'd like to have their bills paid. They'd like to have food. They'd like to make sure that their car's running. And sometimes if it's within our means, especially if it's within our means, to love those people either financially or even at a base-to-base level. We all want to be cared for when someone is hurting. So why would we not go and be a shoulder to cry on? Courtney and I were just talking about that, about men relate to each other shoulder to shoulder, where it's like fishing. You're both facing this way. And all of a sudden you say, things at home are rough. Yeah, that stinks. Yeah. But it's a bonding moment that normally you wouldn't just say anything. Thank you, Rudy. Big old shake of the head. I like that. And women share face to face. It's like, I'm having a horrible time at home. And she goes, oh my gosh, me too. Would you like some more tea? I don't know. However that relates. I don't know. Yeah, Joe.
Let me try talking about what you're talking about. James chapter 2 starts with 14 to 17. What good is it, my brothers, if a man claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save him? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food, and if one of you says to him, go, I wish you well, keep warm and well fed, but does nothing about the physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it's not accomplished by action, is dead.
That word brother, what does that word mean? What does it mean?
Anybody.
Well, neighbor, but what specifically in the form of neighbor would it be, David?
A fellow believer.
A fellow believer.
Yeah.
And where could that fellow believer live?
Anywhere.
Mogadishu. I don't know. Anywhere. Djibouti. I like that word, Djibouti. Anywhere. They could be your literal next door neighbor, or they could be somewhere half across the planet. And yet here we are talking about individuals who are brothers and neighbors, and they don't live anywhere near us. So caring for people on whatever level you can, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, these are all things that we do to share with our brothers and neighbors in Christ, and sometimes those who aren't even in Christ. But making sure, especially those who are in the faith, are really taken care of at a level that we would like to take care of ourselves. So again, don't take that word to just mean your literal neighbor. Expand that word just as the way that God expands a lot of things.
Because every human on this earth is God's child.
Every human on this earth is deserving of love, and God's created them, and I think that we shouldn't see them as a curse. As Jesus says to Peter, don't say anything that I've created is defiled or unclean. So I think that's very important. So then Peter goes to Gentiles to be able to preach the word. So he loves them in the way that he was loved at first by Jesus. So yeah, that's very good. Does anyone else have anything for that section? Yes?
Well, aren't we commended to share our burdens? Weep with those who weep, and laugh
Yes.
with those who laugh.
Yes, as Paul says. And I think it's very important to remember that, again, when we do those things, we are fulfilling these commands that Jesus literally gives us. In fact, in John, when Jesus says, a command I give you, a new one, but one that you already know, is to love one another. And how do people know that we are his disciples? By what? Our love for one another. It's very, very paramount. That love has got to be something that's so deep and so cherished. And that doesn't mean you walk up, because I know me and I know Tyler, you walk up to someone and people give big old hugs. I'm not a hugger. I had an instance on Sunday where I shook someone's hand, they went in for a hug, and I was like, how is this going to go? So I patted them on the back. I don't know. I've gotten used to the shaking hands, and I always go, okay, who is this? How hard do they shake? Okay, shake as hard as they do. How you doing, Kel? And then Marlon, you're just like, oh gosh, here we go. Let's get rid of this. Marlon, I can't match that. You know. But even that's just a little bit of getting over yourself. That's a little bit of getting over me. Just a little bit. But that's how we commune. That's how we communicate. And that's extremely important that we share a little bit of ourselves with other people, even if it means you can't necessarily do a hug or cry on someone's shoulder. I'm there. You need me, I'm there. I will look at you in the face, not shoulder to shoulder. I'm one of those people that's a face kind of person. I've been told I have a kind face. But that was many years ago, so I don't know how that works anymore. Whether I'm shaven or not, I don't know. Well, yeah, anything else for that section there?
I'm just thinking about all the law and the prophets
Mm-hmm.
and how Jesus, when he said it earlier in Matthew, that he didn't come to abolish the law and
Right.
the prophets, but he came to fulfill it. He's talking about the entire Old Testament.
Yes.
And I don't know, that just kind of popped in my head.
Yeah.
So
Even says neither a jot nor tittle will banish
right.
from any of these things.
But I just think it's kind of neat that he refers to it again in the same book, all the law and the prophets. You know, it's important that we realize that he did come to fulfill the whole thing, and this is part of it. I'm probably not making any sense, so I'm just gonna stop.
No, you're perfect.
But-
No.
So anyway.
No, that's perfect. Because even when you look at Jesus himself, he's the one that reconciles us. And when he reconciles us, he came to both love the entirety of the world, his neighbors, in a spiritual sense, his neighbors, and also at the same time he fulfills God's commands. And in doing so, he does exactly what God commanded him to do. God commanded him to give his life, he gives his life. So that's how Jesus shows that he follows those two commands. And in doing so, like you said, fulfills the entirety of the law and the prophets and who he is and what he does. Yeah. So it all connects back to Jesus. I love that. All right, the next section again, like I said, that really hit me today. I said, maybe I'm going to scrap a little bit how we're going to do this. We're going to really go neighbor. I beat that into the ground enough, so we'll continue the next week. Joe, we are stopping at verse 41 for everyone. That's going to be our start next week. All right, thank you.
So much laughter today. It was good.